What's up, YouTube family? We have today a really juicy topic, which is all about network resonance and essentially how to untangle the web from parts of your network that are actually pulling you down. You might have heard the phrase that there's essentially you become the average of the 5 closest people to you. Jim Rohn, a motivational speaker, has been attributed to these words, and they were kind of controversial because people were like, what? I become the 5 closest people to me? What do you mean? And I really believe in a lot of what these words have to say. Though what I also truly believe is it's bigger than that. It's not just the 5 closest people to you that influence who you are. We're talking about so many more things. We're talking about nature. We're talking about nurture. Nature being what you were born into, your family, your upbringing, and nurture being the society, the time, the place, the environment, right? And the power of untangling the web is that you can start to pull out those threads that aren't healthy for you. You might have heard this word like, oh, that's so toxic, oh, that's so like evil, and everything's relative. What could be toxic for you may not be toxic for someone else, and what might not be toxic for someone else may be toxic for you, right? And so that's where we have to learn who we are, what is our composition, what is actually the path that we want to walk, and are the things that we're connected to. You know, the company you keep. I use these words a lot, and I'll unpack this a little bit more in a second. Is the company that you're keeping uplifting you, and are you uplifting them? You know, is there a reciprocal exchange there, or is it one-sided? Is the company that you're keeping really negativity biased, really lazy, really uneducated, really uninspiring, right? And so then because you're in resonance with that, right, you're networking with it, then you become in some way a little less inspired, a little less motivated, a little maybe less inclined to get educated, you know, to learn things. I mean, so the fact that you clicked on this video, go you! It's already a good sign. So yeah, really important topic here. Essentially, we are all connected to some sort of big net of relationship. Everything is relationship. Everything. Relationship to this YouTube channel, relationship to yourself, relationship to your thoughts, relationship to your emotions, relationship to others, relationship to the house that you live in, the country that you live in, relationship to your car, if you have one, relationship to your bicycle, if you have one, relationship to the period of time called morning, the relationship to the evening. Everything is relationship. There's a really epic quote from Tyson Yunkaporta in his book Sand Talk, and I don't remember the exact quote. I might paste it below if I find it. But it really was exactly that everything is existing in relationship to other things. So exactly this point. And so the company you keep, what is that? So as I've touched on in some other videos, which you might have heard, the company that you keep is not just people. And if we refer to that Jim Rohn quote of you're the average of the 5 closest people to you, it's not just the 5 closest people to you that is the company that you keep. The company that you keep extends beyond people, either your close friends, workplace, colleagues, or whatever it might be. It is also the places that you reside in. The company that you keep is your house or your place of residency, your apartment, whatever it is. Maybe you're a traveler. It's literally where you're traveling, right? This is all the company that you keep in place. Company that you keep also includes books that you read, right? What are those books about? Who are the authors of those books? You know, that's a company that you keep. The company that you keep is also the natural environment around you? Is that environment more human altered, like a more of an urban environment? Or is that environment a less human altered environment and more like a countryside or a forest that you live really close to? Or maybe you live in the mountains, right? This is also the company that you keep. And so by extension, the company is the mountains, it is the trees. Or if you're in an urban environment, the company is the suburb, the people in that suburb. And you don't need to know everyone in that suburb for that not to have some kind of influence upon you. Because think about it, if everything is relationship, if you can see and visualize this as a web, right? You're somewhere on that web, but everything else is connected to that. And so whilst you're like the little dot on this web, it doesn't mean that you're not connected to a dot over there. In some way you are, right? So nature is the company that you keep. The company that you keep is also the music that you listen to, right? Think of the difference between super hardcore heavy metal or psytrance or high tech compared to classical music, jazz, top 40 pop songs. Very different in resonance and frequency, right? And think about how, the company that you keep is not, we're not just talking about physical, tangible things. The company that you keep are also including the unseen forces like thoughts, right? That's also the company that you keep. What is this saying? Right? Can you listen and attune to that chatter in your mind? And is what is present there benevolent, beneficial, uplifting, supportive, reflective? Or is it demoralizing, diminishing? Is it cruel? Is it judgmental? Is it in victim? So, it's not that black and white. Of course, it can be a bit of both for sure, but there is a tendency, right, of where those thoughts are in terms of that spectrum, let's say. This is also the company that you keep. And by extension, the thoughts affect emotions. And so the emotions that are really present in your system are also the company that you keep. Be it, maybe you're someone who really experiences a lot of grief, or you're someone who's been feeling really bogged down by these constant waves of anxiety, depression. Or maybe you're someone who's quite, has a default that's maybe quite angry, right? And it isn't just having to be skewed in the negative, so to speak. Of course, we can have a default sort of base state, which is maybe optimistic and joyous. And this is also the company that you keep, and that's cool. What I always encourage is first that we have awareness of what's in our system, what's comprising our system. Awareness is curative. Awareness is the first step in order to make a change, right? So all of this, every facet of the company that we keep, be it the seen or unseen things, are what influence the fabric, the tapestry of our existence. Because think about it, the company that you keep are all like individual threads, and together they weave the tapestry of you, right? So in this video, we're going to explore this a little bit more and how the both seen and unseen influences upon our relational network shape our psychology, they shape our well-being, they shape our self-worth, and ultimately they shape our success and our liberation. We'll also dive into how the so-called toxic networks can trap us in cycles of wounding, and how healing these attachments, these threads, can help us to reclaim sovereignty over our life and the trajectory of our life ultimately. So to really hone in that point, every relationship, whether you're aware of it or not, even the relationship, the thread that is the supermarket you go to, that too has an influence upon your life. Every relationship, seen and unseen, plays a role in weaving the tapestry of you and of your existence. And our well-being is heavily shaped upon the things that we are connected to, the things that we are immersed in. It's not something so esoteric, like it really is very tangible and very practical. Think about it, if one of those threads is, for example, your work, it's pretty clear how that's having an influence upon your life, right? It's altering how your day or week is scheduled. It's influencing, if it's a workplace with other people, it's influencing the people that you're exposed to. That is part of your network. And remember, the network isn't just the closest things, it's all the things on the web. Like, think of the web has like an outer sort of rim, and then there's an inner, an inner, an inner, an inner, but all of them are the network, the web. And so if, for example, that the people in your workplace are super competitive, if we refer to moving from the competitor to the creator, which was week 9 of Discouraged to Willing, go check that video out. Super juicy, super real, super powerful. That's going to influence your state. It would take a lot of power to choose a different story if you weren't conscious of that, because we would just come into resonance with it. One of the things that really illustrates this, which was super powerful when I learned about it in my studies for holistic integrated creative arts therapy, was this term called sympathetic resonance. And essentially this was pretty incredible. There were these two sort of like tuning forks, and one of them got clinged, or whatever the word is there, hit, and it resonated, it vibrated the tone of the tone that it was as the tuning fork. You're right, ding, woo. And then what happened? The second tuning fork, which was not clinged, it started to sing that frequency. It started to sing the same tone without being touched. That's what sympathetic resonance is, and that's what happens to us. If you put me and you in the same room, unconsciously and consciously, ding, I speak, there's the sound, and that will resonate in you, and then we'll start to come into resonance, right? And so that's why I'm trying to hone in this point of how important it is to be aware of what your network is, in place, in people, and so on, what I touched on before. When that sound is clung, and maybe it's the sound of a super competitive environment, which is not supportive, which is dog eat dog, which is I don't care about your emotional well-being or psychological well-being or any of the well-beings. This needs to happen for this company, and screw you for having a sick day, or whatever it is. Like, oh, hectic thing to resonate with. So this video, if nothing else, is a massive invitation to at least just consider or reflect upon your network. What are you connected to? And you don't have to zoom all the way out into the widest bands of that web, right? You can start small, what's in your immediate circle? What's your inner circle? What's in your house? What are the books? What are the people, right? What's your work? And maybe something will come out of that. And I'm not trying to make you rip band-aids off and like ditch everything that you're doing. No, that's not the point. It's just, let's reflect a little. Let's see what you're connected to. Something really interesting, which could help illustrate this point as well, was that there were studies done in the early 90s in New York City. And further studies have been done on this too, like 40 or something, even more in the last decade. And essentially this study was conducted in New York City, and it had a number of people who were meditating every day for a certain amount of time. And there were like 30 people, sort of research industries, like mediating this sort of survey. So it was a real deal thing. And they tracked, well, prior to that, the hypothesis of the study was that reduced societal stress would reduce urban crime. And so that's what happened. A bunch of people came together and they meditated to reduce stress. And what happened? The urban crime rate decreased while these people came together to meditate. Because the network, even people who had no idea that this study was happening, were influenced by the dot on the other side of the web, if that makes sense to visualize that. How cool is that? How cool is that? Something which is really interesting as well, to bring it into family constellations terms, is that you are part of a lineage, okay? Your father's side and your mother's side, they come from somewhere, and their parents come from somewhere. And for me, for example, both of my parents are Lebanese, so I'm full-blood Lebanese. They were both born in Australia. Most of my grandparents were born in Australia. My grandmother on my mother's side, she moved to Australia when she was in her mid-30s or something. So there was still some connection to the quote-unquote homeland. But this is also the part of the network. This is also part of the things that are influencing you. You can't delete the influence of your ancestral line. You are in blood and bone living that. You are the front line of your lineage, right? And so you carry your ancestors and their memories and their experiences in you. Think of epigenetics, right? It's not just all about physical, tangible DNA. We're also talking about patterns and habits and emotional traumas. Like, this all gets passed down through the generations, thus affecting the tapestry of you. And so if our ancestors went through war, if our ancestors had patterns of traumas and sexual abuse, then the memory imprints, the emotional wounds, if they weren't dealt with in the time that they were alive, this gets passed down through the generations. And emotions will wait hundreds of years to be felt. They're not in a rush. But the system needs to be whole and healthy, and so nothing can get off scot-free. If your ancestors didn't deal with it, likely is, unconsciously or consciously, you're dealing with the similar patterns or programs. So in family constellations, right, you're able to see, like, someone could come and be like, yo, I'm just constantly feeling like in this pattern of like addiction. And it doesn't matter how much I try, like, I'm so consumed by this. And addiction, by the way, is not just to a substance like alcohol. Addiction can also be to perfectionism, right? Everything can be an addiction. And what does family constellations reveal? That father or grandfather or however many generations back also experienced this addiction pattern. And so there, it really illustrates how if our networks, if our webs have been filled with unresolved pain or anger or attachments to toxicity, then pockets of consciousness can form where dark energies thrive, right? Think of, I've used this before, the example of the swampy swamp. And I have nothing against swamps, bless them. Also, incredible creatures live there. But just to illustrate this point, like if it's dense energy that hasn't been moved or light hasn't been shone upon it, things are growing and it's gooey and, it's not so pretty. Another illustration could be dark attic. No one goes up there. and then suddenly it just gets full of spiders because they're all comfy and they're not getting disturbed. Right? So this is what happens when we don't address the stuff in our network. And these dark energies, as I said with family constellation, they get passed down if they're not resolved. And so therefore they can latch onto individuals, they can latch onto groups, influencing behaviors unconsciously, and therefore the outcomes that derive from those actions, which are influenced by the behaviors, the energetic imprints. And so from a more ancestral level, something that's really interesting to know is that if we've had ancestors, for example, who lived a really pain-ridden, heavy life, and they weren't educated in that time to know how to deal with that, no full compassion to it, right? Or they died super suddenly because they were in war. Like, there are really intense things that can happen, and we hold that with as much compassion as we can. But if they don't resolve their stuff, or they don't transition well after they die, not all of our ancestors become ancestors, if that makes sense. If they don't go through that healing process, if they are just like overthrown by these pockets of dark energy, right, or a super sudden trauma or whatever it is, they can remain as dead relatives, which are likened to ghosts, rather than well and vibrant ancestors who are like the allies behind you, supporting you, uplifting you, as holding you up in the platform that is them, right? And, you know, this is also connected to the more shamanic work that I also do and have been initiated in these past number of years. And so I'm also, you know, it's super interesting. I'm not going to open that can of worms fully here because, yeah, perhaps another time or perhaps another place. But anyway, it's real, it's a thing. And so if you can at least grasp that not everything that you're experiencing as an affliction is because of you as an individual, it's because of the network, the web, the system that you're connected to, be it from your ancestors, the ones who were very burdened and are still burdened even after dying. They didn't transition, they didn't become ancestralized, knowing that these ghosts could be looming, right, in your field because nothing got resolved, right? If you can accept that, then it's easier to accept that the government that I'm connected to based in the country that I live is also affecting me. The less tangible, sometimes, cultural norms, they're also influencing me. And again, the more awareness you can have over these, ideally, the less impact they will have on you, because you have enough consciousness to choose a different story, to choose a different path, to know that you have this tendency, for example, for addiction, or you have this tendency for super intense bouts of rage, and you just don't know where it comes from. Know that it's not just about you as an individual. I'm going to keep honing in this point because we are conditioned to believe that everything is just the individual. No, it is about the system that you are connected to, the web. You're like one little dot on that web. The web is the whole thing. And remember, there are inner circles to that web, things that you're more obviously connected to, and there are things on the outer skirts of that web, which are things you are less obviously connected to, but nonetheless, they still bear an influence upon your life. Remember, they're like the threads that weave the tapestry of who you are. So in order to untangle the web and heal these attachment wounds, to heal these things that are burdening us, for sure with family constellations, you can come into a session and we'll work on passing these burdens back to their appropriate place and disentangling those things from you in that kind of context. Though you can also continue doing research on things like this of what is your network, you know? You can take a moment to reflect upon what are you connected to. That's where journaling is super useful. right? You can have conversations with people that you are connected to and speak about these sort of topics of like, you know, resonance. You know, you can be aware of even your friends or the people you're connected to and just notice like the kind of qualities that they exhibit and if you exhibit the same things and did you before you met them. Or at least just be aware of, the people I'm connected to supportive? You know, are they motivated? Are they striving for living the best life that they can? Or are the people I'm connected to really complacent and black-pilled and totally negativity biased and whatnot? So that can also really assist you in untangling the web, untangling the toxicity, so to speak, from this web, right? Something else that I want to introduce to you, which may be helpful, is acknowledging the 12 hidden enemies and their role in relational health and well-being. So these 12 hidden energies are egoism, arrogance, conceit, selfishness, greed, lust, intolerance, anger, lying, cheating, gossiping, and slandering. And so these hidden enemies may be perpetuated by the systems, the networks, the webs that you're connected to. Okay? And so if any of these resonate, maybe it's a sign that the network that you're a part of isn't countering these things, they're feeding those things. And maybe it's a nice reflection point of being like, why am I allowing that in my life? Why am I perpetuating that in my life? What can I do to make a change, even if it's little, to not feed these so much? So egoism and arrogance, for example, can really cut us off from others, creating isolation and superiority complexes. Conceit and selfishness erode the foundation of empathy. Greed and lust can lead to these addictive tendencies, right? Creating cycles of craving, which further bind us to these toxic systems. Intolerance and anger can cut us off from open communication and create resentment, right? Keeping us in constant friction and reactive states. And then lying, gossiping, cheating, and slandering, they break down trust and integrity with the network, making true intimacy and authentic connections near to impossible. And so each of these hidden enemies can be neutralized, they can be healed with awareness, with doing the relational healing, working on what's alive in our systems and starting to disentangle that. And of course, self-accountability, you know, just like knowing what these are and deciding not to feed them as best as you can. And taking responsibility for these internal enemies is really the first step in liberating ourselves from their control, and often subconscious control, over our lives and feeding into the networks that we're connected to. And something else which can be really helpful to know of is that there's a need for relational coherence to maintain healthy networks. There's a sense of attunement that's needed for both parties to be in sync, right? And something that really assists in that is having a sort of common purpose, a common goal, a shared vision. And without this, networks can become fractured or unhealthy because they're just not in sync. There's not, maybe they come into resonance because that's sort of in some way inevitable, but it's not really a win-win sort of situation, you know. Maybe the resonance that emerges from both parties being together isn't one that's actually conducive for the highest good of either side. And so when relationships, for example, can have a common goal or a shared vision, the health and the sustainability and the longevity of those connections can be really improved and augmented, because there's something like, there's like a greater holding of the connection, you know. it's not so superficial anymore, you know, and maybe that shared common goal, even with just friends, is something like the goal is to be the most authentic people we can be, you know, something like that. The goal doesn't have to be we're each going to earn 100K this year. I mean, heck, maybe it is. And just because there's a common goal also doesn't mean that it's necessarily a beneficial goal. So, you know, it's got to feel right. It's got to be connected to not only just the fact of needing a goal, but is that goal in alignment with your values? Okay, so pay attention to the nuance there. But hopefully you get the point. You know, just for sure, be aware of the company that you keep. What is that? Be aware of the inner circle. What is that? And start to bring your awareness to the outer circles. And what is that? What is that company? And if you can perceive it, how is that influencing the tapestry of you? Right? So often we hear like, oh, you've got to escape the matrix, as if the matrix is some kind of place. And it's just not. If we apply the meaning of what people mean when they say the matrix, what we're actually speaking about is a psychological trauma place, which we bond over and form with some kind of fear-based control system. And so it becomes less of like, oh, the matrix is just big cities. It's like, no, the matrix is more unseen than that. The matrix is the fear narratives. Then the matrix is the control systems. And the matrix wants us to bond over those things and stay in a fearful state. And how then do you untangle yourself from that? Well, you heal your attachment wounds. You resolve relational toxicity. And this brings the power to you because you're not waiting for the outside to give you a permission slip for being your authentic self now. You decide when that is time, and you decide, and when you decide that, you'll realize pretty soon that there are some things which aren't in alignment with your highest authentic self. And then you can start to go through those steps of deciding the life that you want to live, deciding who the person is that you want to be, and going from there. And stuff will emerge organically as you go through that process. And you will be tested, you will be challenged, right? That's just the nature of things. But you are the one who can decide, I will not be in fear, I will be in love. I choose love. Even when it gets hard, I choose love. And then support yourself. Do your practices, your meditation, your journaling. Do the therapeutic work if that is available to you. And even if it's not, there are so many free resources which can assist you in going through that process, right? You're on this channel, for example, there's a lot of goodness here. If you have the capacity to, feel free to message me about a session, right, for family constellations or some energy work. And know that power to you. The way that you escape the matrix is by doing that healing work and noticing if your network is healthy or not, and then going through the next steps from there, deciding maybe that workplace isn't suited for you, it's been really dulling your light, and employing the abundance mindset, knowing that there are many other places that you could work which do support you, right? So applying a solutions-based approach rather than a problem fixation approach, right? So yeah, that's the main point there. And this phrase that we hear a lot of, like, your network is your net worth. This is so real. The company we keep is not just a reflection of our social standing, but a direct determinant of our psychological, spiritual, emotional, mental health, and ultimately our success and our liberation, right? And so healthy, coherent relational networks healthy, coherent company, remember, seen and unseen, people and all the other things, is the key to true freedom and self-fulfillment. So, maybe a lot to swallow, but baby steps, right? Just notice, that's all you got to do to start this process. And you'll be surprised what may organically emerge from that, because you already have everything you need to completely change your life, to untangle yourself from unhealthy, non-beneficial webs, right? And also a reminder that healing is not just individual, it's a collective thing. By cultivating healthy networks, we not only heal ourselves, but also contribute to the healing of society as a whole. We reclaim our power, we can untangle from the toxicity of the web, and break free from the invisible systems that control your mind and your spirit. And then you become a tuning fork that resonates a beautiful frequency that other people can come into resonance with, and everyone can be lifted up from there. Woohoo! All right, that's it for me today. I will see you guys in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Give this video a like for me, subscribe to this channel to support what goodness we have going on here. And if you want one-to-one support, look at the links in the description. You can email me at sophierashidart@gmail.com for any offerings that I haven't listed below, like family constellations or the energy alignment sessions, and we can go from there. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Be well.